Imagine opening a prediction market and seeing this: Anthropic 94%, OpenAI just 4%. And the question isn't about who has the most users. It isn't about who has the biggest valuation. The question is much more specific. Which company will have the best AI model by the end of August? According to the Polymarket snapshot we're examining, the market is giving Anthropic an extraordinary lead. The market shows roughly 94% for Anthropic and 4% for OpenAI, with around $1 million in trading volume. But here's the fascinating part. A prediction market isn't a scientific measurement. It doesn't mean Anthropic has a 94% guaranteed chance of winning. It means traders, based on the information available to them, are collectively pricing Anthropic as the overwhelming favorite. And that raises a much bigger question. Why? Why would a company that, for years, wasn't considered the obvious public face of artificial intelligence suddenly become the favorite over OpenAI? And even more importantly, can OpenAI still turn the race around before August ends? Because in frontier AI, for weeks can be an eternity. A single model release can completely change the leaderboard. A new reasoning system can rewrite expectations. A breakthrough in coding, mathematics, agents, or scientific reasoning can suddenly make yesterday's leader look outdated. So today we're going inside the race between Anthropic and OpenAI. And we're going to ask the question that matters: who actually deserves to be called the best AI company by the end of August? Before choosing a winner, there's a problem. What exactly does best AI model mean? Because there is no single universal AI scoreboard. A model can dominate coding and still be weaker at creative writing. It can be exceptional at mathematics but slower in real-world conversations. It can have extraordinary reasoning capabilities but be expensive to operate. And one model can outperform another on benchmarks while ordinary users prefer the supposedly weaker model. So if we're going to judge this race seriously, we need several categories. First, reasoning. Can the model solve difficult multi-step problems? Second, coding. Can it understand large code bases, debug software, build applications, and operate coding tools? Third, agents. Can it actually perform tasks rather than simply answer questions? Fourth, knowledge and research. Can it search, synthesize information, analyze documents, and produce useful conclusions? Fifth, long context performance. Can it work with enormous amounts of information without losing the plot? Sixth, reliability. Does it follow instructions accurately? And finally, real-world usefulness. Because the best model isn't necessarily the model that wins one benchmark. It's the model people actually trust to get important work done. And that's where Anthropic becomes extremely interesting. Anthropic's rise has been remarkable. The company built its reputation around Claude, but its strategy has increasingly moved beyond simply creating a chatbot. Anthropic has pushed heavily into coding, agents, enterprise workflows, and professional work. And that shift may be exactly why prediction markets are suddenly paying so much attention. Anthropic's rise has been remarkable. The company built its reputation around Claude, but its strategy has increasingly moved beyond simply creating a chatbot. Anthropic has pushed heavily into coding, agents, enterprise workflows, and professional work. In June 2026, Anthropic introduced Claude Sonnet 5, describing it as a frontier model designed for coding, agents, and professional work at scale. The model also supports a 1 million token context window and up to 128,000 output tokens through its platform. Think about what that means. 1 million tokens isn't just a larger chatbot memory. It can fundamentally change the kinds of projects an AI can work with. Large repositories, long technical documents, research collections, complex business information, entire project histories. The more context a model can reliably understand, the less humans have to break complicated problems into tiny pieces. And Anthropic has another major advantage.
Claude Code.
The competition is increasingly moving from which chatbot gives the better answer to which AI can actually do the work. That's a very different competition. An AI coding agent doesn't simply explain how to modify a program, can inspect files, understand the architecture, make changes, run tests, find problems, and iterate. That makes the model's ability to reason over long sequences of actions incredibly important. And Anthropic has clearly positioned itself around that future. There's another reason Anthropic is getting so much attention. Its products have become deeply connected to professional workflows. Developers aren't only asking Claude questions. They're using AI to build software. Companies are using AI to analyze information. Researchers are experimenting with AI-assisted scientific workflows. And Anthropic itself has expanded its focus toward scientific workflows and auditable outputs. This tells us something important. The AI race is changing. The early AI race was about conversation. Then it became about reasoning. Now it's becoming about execution. The winner may not be the model that can write the most impressive paragraph. It may be the model that can take a messy real-world assignment and complete it with minimal supervision. That's why coding agents matter so much. And recent research gives us an interesting example. A head-to-head scientific computing experiment compared Claude Code and OpenAI Codex on an end-to-end simulated gravitational wave analysis pipeline. Both systems were capable of completing the scientific workflow, but they behaved differently. Claude Code completed one version of the pipeline much faster, while Codex took longer and used more explicit self-correcting restarts. The researchers also found differences in how the systems interpreted instructions and handled intermediate results. That doesn't prove Claude is universally better, but it demonstrates something important. Different frontier models can have fundamentally different working styles, and that difference matters enormously when AI becomes an agent. Now we come to the giant standing on the other side of the battlefield, OpenAI. For millions of people, OpenAI is practically synonymous with modern generative AI. ChatGPT changed the public perception of what AI could do, and OpenAI has continued moving toward increasingly capable reasoning and agentic systems. Its advantage isn't simply the model. It's the ecosystem, ChatGPT, developer tools, Codex, APIs, enterprise adoption, massive consumer distribution, and a huge global user base. So why does Polymarket currently show only 4%? That's where things get interesting, because the market isn't necessarily saying, OpenAI is bad. It may be saying, Anthropic currently has the momentum. Those are completely different statements. OpenAI can still have one of the strongest AI systems on Earth while simultaneously being the market's underdog for this specific deadline. And deadlines matter. The question isn't, who will dominate AI forever? It's, who will have the best model at the end of August? That's a snapshot. And snapshots can change very quickly. OpenAI has one enormous advantage. It doesn't need to dominate every category. It needs to release something that changes the perception of the entire race. Here's where we need to be careful. AI companies love benchmarks, and benchmarks are useful. But benchmarks can also be misleading. Imagine Model A scores higher on mathematics. Model B scores higher on coding. Model C is faster. Model D is cheaper. Which one is best? There isn't necessarily one answer. And even worse, benchmark performance doesn't always translate perfectly into real-world usefulness. A model can achieve an impressive score and still make mistakes in situations that matter. That's why today's AI race increasingly requires a portfolio of evaluations. Reasoning, coding, long context understanding, agent reliability, tool use, scientific work, cybersecurity, instruction following, and safety. The most important question may no longer be, can the model solve this problem? Maybe, can the model solve this problem reliably, repeatedly, and without human supervision? That is a much harder challenge. And it becomes even more important as AI systems gain the ability to take actions. Because once an AI can operate software, write code, access tools, and execute multi-step tasks, a small mistake can become much more consequential. The future of AI, therefore, isn't simply about intelligence. It's about dependable intelligence. And that's where the next battlefield appears.
AI agent.
The next stage of AI isn't just chat. It's agents. Imagine saying, build me a website, and instead of receiving code, the AI creates installs dependencies, writes the code, runs tests, fixes errors, deploys the application, monitors it, and updates it. That's an agent. And once AI reaches this stage, model quality becomes much harder to measure. Because we're no longer judging one answer. We're judging hundreds of decisions made over time. One wrong decision can break the entire workflow. That's why Anthropic's strength in coding agents is so significant. But it also creates new risks. As AI systems become more autonomous, developers need stronger safeguards. The challenge becomes balancing autonomy with control. You want the AI to be capable enough to complete complicated work. But you also want it to know when it should stop and ask a human. This is one of the biggest questions facing frontier AI companies. How much independence should we give these systems? And perhaps even more importantly, which company can build an AI agent that is not only intelligent, but trustworthy? That could become one of the most important factors in deciding the AI leaderboard. Because the future isn't going to be defined only by chatbots. It will be defined by AI systems that work alongside humans. Now let's talk about something most casual users don't think about. Context. Imagine giving an AI a 500-page technical document, then another 500 pages, then a repository containing thousands of files, then a conversation explaining your goals, then asking it to solve a problem using all of that information. The challenge isn't simply remembering the text. The challenge is understanding what
In the heart
matters
of San Francisco,
and using it correctly.
a quiet war for the
Anthropic's
future of
Claude
intelligence
Sonnet 5
is being
supports
fought.
a 1 million token
Here,
context window
the market
through its
operates,
platform, which is one reason long context workflows have become an important part of the company's positioning. But context length alone doesn't guarantee intelligence. A huge context window is only useful if the model can navigate it reliably. So again, we return to the same question. Can the model actually do the job? And now we can return to the number that started this entire documentary. 94%. Why would traders price Anthropic so far ahead? There are several possible explanations. First, Anthropic has strong momentum in coding and agentic workflows. Second, Claude's latest generation has been positioned aggressively around professional and frontier workloads. Third, the market may expect Anthropic to remain highly competitive through the end of August. Fourth, traders may believe OpenAI's current advantage is less decisive than it was in earlier generations. But there's an important warning. 94% does not mean 94% scientific certainty. Prediction markets can be wrong. They can move rapidly. They can react to new information. And a market with roughly $1 million in volume is meaningful, but it still doesn't represent the entire AI industry. So we shouldn't ask, is Anthropic guaranteed to win? We should ask, what information would make this 94% collapse? And the answer is simple. A major OpenAI release. Imagine the final weeks of August. Anthropic releases an improvement. OpenAI responds. Anthropic improves coding. OpenAI improves reasoning. OpenAI launches a stronger agent. Anthropic responds with a stronger version of Claude code. One benchmark changes, then another, and suddenly the leaderboard starts moving. This is why the AI race feels unlike previous technology competitions. The products aren't static. The competitors are continuously improving them. The benchmark itself can become obsolete. And the definition of best keeps changing. So, who will have the best AI model by the end of August? If we use the Polymarket snapshot shown at the beginning of this documentary, Anthropic is the overwhelming favorite. 94% versus 4%. That's an enormous gap. And there are understandable reasons for that confidence. Anthropic has built serious momentum around coding, agents, long context work, and professional AI. But I'm not ready to call the race over. Because OpenAI has something prediction markets can never completely price in. The possibility of a surprise. One major model. One major breakthrough. One unexpected capability. And the entire market can change. So perhaps the most interesting conclusion isn't Anthropic will win. Is this Anthropic is currently the favorite. But OpenAI is still dangerous. And in the AI industry, The distance between 4% and 94% can disappear incredibly fast, because this isn't a normal technology race. It's a race where the competitors are building systems capable of improving the way humans build technology itself. The AI leaderboard is no longer stable. The race is accelerating, and we're watching it happen in real time. Anthropic versus OpenAI. 94% versus 4%. The question isn't whether the AI war is happening. The question is who will be standing at the top when the clock runs out. Who do you think will win, Anthropic or OpenAI? Subscribe for the next AI prediction.